G'day punters, welcome back to the Punters Academy. Good morning, John Walter from racingwatch.com.au. How are you?
Good morning, mate. You survived the Coffs Harbour Cup carnival, I guess it was. It was only one day for you, wasn't it? But it was a couple of days of action with the Calcutta and everything involved.
Yeah, it was nice to get the result, so no complaints there.
Third favourite backer.
Well, I hadn't intended to buy the favourite, so Wuriri Falls was the horse we were keen on at the price, and then just the way the auction was going, the favourite being what it was priced at, it made a lot of sense to buy it, especially with the concession.
It happens often, doesn't it, when you go to those Calcuttas? Number one, the favourite, you often come, like you get value about it, especially with the concession, like you're saying, and you often buy horses maybe you didn't intend to buy just because a little bit of a value pops up or an opportunity. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time, very good result. Well done.
Yeah, it was a bit of money to outlay on a country race, but still.
It helps when Bowman's riding it, doesn't it? Like it helps. It definitely helps you pull the trigger when Bowman's going to Coffs Harbour to ride one.
Yeah, it was a good race.
Jeff Keogh, you might have been sleeping a little bit more tenderly.
Yes.
No comment.
Okay, so we won't say any more about that. Excuse me. So Randwick Saturday punters, a genuine dead track. It came out a 5.1 on the rating swing scale, and on the course proper, that's for the course proper, I should say, and for the shoot races, just a touch worse at 5.4. Look, early mail that I had was that the inside was totally gone and significantly slower than the best spot, which was probably about 7 off. Haven't got the final lanes data yet to confirm all of that, but that's certainly what it looked like, and probably not all that surprising really, being that the row was true. So we've got a bit to go through here. Some of the races have got a bit of meat in them, John, I thought. What did you say?
Yeah, it was kind of we sort of didn't talk about it on the Thursday, but it's sort of a meeting where you had hard fit horses that have been racing recently up against a few resuming, probably better quality, mixed in with a few other sort of different recipes every race. It was certainly, like, doing the form was quite interesting, and at least getting to look at some of the nicer horses returning. Some of them failed, some of them didn't, all pretty explainable, I thought. So, but definitely, as you say, a bit of meat in the meeting. So, and I agree with you. Some strange rides, just because it did look quite obvious from early in the day that the inside was pretty much calf, but definitely sort of 6, 7, maybe even further off was better than being towards the inside.
Oh, for sure. Okay, let's start off with race 1, the Highway. Certainly a solid pace set here by Zadig, who actually did a pretty good job, really. 56 days off, ran the fastest sectional rating to the 800, 2 to 600 and 2 to 400. Not surprisingly, weak in the last bit. The last 400 of this race was poor, about 7 lengths below, and I suppose, for a Highway, it was just average, really. But I did think that Zadig's effort was pretty good to be beaten 8 lengths, notwithstanding, but it was on the inside as well. And Life Well Lived, who may have choked down in the races, probably a forgive. What did you say about it, John?
Yeah, interesting. I thought it was a little bit plain, but like you say, may have choked down. Definitely the two up front did themselves no favours, and I agree, Zadig looked a bit vulnerable because of its setup, and did a good job. Obviously stayed on the inside there. The rest of them couldn't make too many excuses. Funny story, Timmy's ringing me on the way. Can I ride a winner? He's like, I'm in 1, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm like, well, in race 1, there's 15 horses, 14 chances. Yours is the odd one out. Of course, it bolts up at 40, just makes me look like a clown. It actually went okay. As you said, the time was okay. It was fine, set up by a fast tempo, but and this horse certainly did get to the middle of the track, but you couldn't make too many excuses for those behind it. So even though it's flooded by the tempo, it did something. And those sort of 4, 5, 6 around it all certainly had their chance to beat it. and didn't. And I didn't mind the run of Alloway as well. Thought it's the horse in the red cap pulling around him. Had its chance, but was up on the speed. Thought they were the two better runs. And even, what was the horse that took it on? Kadashi, was it called? Kadashi was okay as well. I think normally those sort of horses would find an on-pace position pretty comfortably and certainly not carve each other up like this. So in a pretty ugly race, the on-paces are probably the ones I'd rather follow than the swoopers.
Okay, well, another 1,800 metre race in race 2. As soon as this replay's finished, we'll bring that up.
Someone asked me, what's the story with all these 1800s? And I don't know if there's an unusual amount or not, but there does seem to be when you think about it.
Well, I think there's a big race coming up over 1,800, isn't there? For
maybe that's what it is.
Because
it's a bit of a, like, mile 2,000, 2,400. They're the more common races you think about, aren't they? Sort of, and there's a lot more these sort of gap middle races that we never used to have. Well, not as many anyway.
Okay, so the 1,800 midway race 2, the tempo was above average, and also poor last 400, around about 7 lengths below also. We roll a tape there, and of course we've got Adios Steve up there leading. I thought it was a decent run, really. Worst part of the track for it. Wasn't going slow. What else do we say in the race? Highly Desired was a bit disappointing. I think it's going for a spell. And I thought there were a couple of forgive runs in Riding Unexpected, who sort of took off and sat wide without cover, and McCormack, who sort of had a wide triple also. I think they can certainly be forgiven, probably leaning more to the latter, the earlier one that I mentioned, Riding Unexpected. There it is, going round them.
Agree completely. Thought Adios Steve was probably the complete forgive run in the race, and it was keen too, Written Unexpected. Just a little bit. The horses that sat wide there may be a little bit not flattered, but you know what I mean. Just trying to be not too kind to them. But this horse in particular, like you said, Written Unexpected did do something. Made keen in the run, made an early move, fought on quite well. The winner actually sort of doing the form. I got a bit excited, thought I'd found one that might be $10. Then remembered Jamie McDonald was on it, and it was like $3.60. And then I think they even backed it. What did it start? Something similar to that. $3.50.
Berserker, around 5 or 2, yeah.
Just gave it a perfect ride, perfect conditions for it. Everything could go right for it, went right for it. Blinkers off. Just sort of, I think the moon's completely aligned for Bazooka here, and I'd be concerned about this form going forward. Even the time was just okay. I think it was a pretty steady race, and the winner certainly will struggle to get anything conditions to suit better than that.
Yeah, so there's probably not much else to really say, was there? I mean,
no, I think we both found the two horses that are probably gives.
Anyway, let's move on to race 3, the 2,400 metre race, and average tempo here, John. What do we have to say here? The winner's gone okay and continues to race well enough. Maricopa, look, did cop a bad check there at around the 700 metre mark and sort of lost all its momentum, but still not sure what to make of its run. What else have we got? Which one pulled up lane? Was that, how do you pronounce that? Yggdrasil? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. On the backup, the 7-day backup.
Yeah, and Forest Diamond, who's been up for a long time, and I think that was its 9th run in this preparation. It only had one previous run in the prep. Prior to that, it's been beaten a long way and was disappointing. Our candidate was okay, I suppose, but not a lot for me to take out of this race. What about you, John?
Thought the ride on the leader was pretty average. In isolation, completely controlling the race, and we can see probably she can't. You got 350 to 1s chasing it as well, so had a complete buffer from anything that was competitive in the race. And I just thought after having control for the first 2/3 of the race, that the slowdown from the 8 to the 6 was just totally not required, especially from a horse like this that was hard fit. Cadre de Noir, or what is it? It's a horse that's getting fitter and was probably the danger on paper. And if anything, you probably wanted to make it hurt if you could in the run and make it a chase, not a race. And unfortunately, Rachel kind of didn't do that and allowed it to sort of slide into the race without doing any work. Sort of, I think she's sort of 3 or 4 further in front here. She wins the race. She even sort of went back to the inside, which was not ideal. And I think she ran a faster last 200 than the winner. So I would say that the second horse is a certainty beaten, but only because it had such a soft run for the first half of the race. I just thought it was a pretty average ride to get it beat, but might have missed its chance, and the winner's probably got more upside than it going forward. Yeah. So that's about it. I couldn't find anything else back in the field. Just thought the second horse should have won. You're a bit stiff if you're on it.
Look, I think Say United's gone is about as good as it can go. I can see your point, what you're saying, but look, she did quicken up slightly between the 6 and the 4. So I'm not saying, and they did beat the others by about 5 lengths. So yeah, I can see what you're saying. But
the second horse is vulnerable. The winner's vulnerable fitness-wise. Hard fit Gay Waterhouse. I can imagine Gay giving her an absolute spray after the race, right or wrong, but. Anyway.
Yeah, look, it could be either way, interpreted either way. I think. I mean, I'm not going to knock her for it, but I see what you're saying. Why not?
And I didn't bet in the race, to be fair. I just anyway. There's no real point talking about it too much going forward because, like you say, I think it went as good as it can go, and it's probably that was its chance. But anyway, it is going well, the horse, and finally got full control of a race. Race 4.
Anyway, we'll move on to one of
this
the.
Was an interesting race, right?
Yeah, average tempo early. Look, they did slow down a little bit to below average tempo by the time they got to the 600. Interesting that Conqueror was, I thought, so short. Definitely entitled to be favourite, but I wasn't really in the fan camp for it. Look, the winner's gone much better than it, I think, and even a horse like I've been trying there, it was on the inside, wasn't it, John?
It was, and it cut up the inside, never attempted to.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad run.
Like, forgive what, like it did miss it half and then got smashed by its stablemate, Conqueror. So maybe no one expected it to be that far back. The tempo, again, slowed from the 8 to the 6, didn't it? Which was a weird one. But I completely agree with you. Annika's completely dominated this horse late in the race, and I don't really know what to do with it. If you say that it was sort of vulnerable off 2 short trials, 1400 first up, maybe you can just treat it like another barrier trial because it was certainly set a task to try and round them up 1400 first up off a slow tempo. But the winner had the same task, right? Like obviously settled a pair closer in the run, but it's hard to make too many excuses for Conqueror.
But it had come off a 1080 trial. Whereas you say those short course trials, I hate them, and
especially on synthetic. Yeah.
And especially at 1400 first up. So
did you see?
I'm not potting the horse. I'm just saying that wasn't an ideal setup for mine. Grace Stilio.
Getting trouble on Twitter from Joe Pride telling me to take out my trainer's license because I said that I thought it was a green setup. That was a good one. I thought. Like I just said, I didn't even have a go at him. I just said I thought this was one of the weirdest setups I've seen. A horse like that had one run last prep 1100, resuming 1400 this time off 2 short trials, and I copped a bake from Joe. But anyway, whatever.
Why was he giving?
What's that, mate?
I said, why was he giving you a bake?
I don't know. I don't even really know what his angle was, but I just thought then, especially with Waller, with like 3 horses resuming 1400 off 3 different setups, I thought it was an interesting race worth talking about. But
it is.
It went okay. This horse, Gracie Styler, first up, 1400 as well. But
definitely forgive run 3.
Surfing Punter, the old PP, he sort of made a really good point straight after the race. This horse is a very talented horse, Arnica, when it's right, and I think it's sort of underrated. Very good fresh horse too. Like if they just put it away and knew they were going to get a Cosy run, it'd be very dangerous in a race like that. I think, even though this was not like a super time or anything like that, it's just a horse that has really good ability when it's in the right mood. Cool.
Darty was lame, so forget it. And as we talked about that Grace Estelio, it was not a bad run at all. Forgive it. Cotton Fingers, I think, is going for a spell, and they're going to get. Are they going to gild it? I think there was some note. Yeah, they're going to be gilded and spelled. So
it's strange when you sort of look at this race heading in, and you were thinking, oh, okay, is this on a spring champion path? Is Gracie Styler on a spring champion path? Don't know much about Coderati. even a horse like this was a forgive run. Actually, Cacophonics just given no chance again and ran into a few dead ends. But it's funny that sort of maybe Country Championship and Kosciuszko form is what you take out of it, which is kind of what I've thought, that these two horses are confirmed that they're pretty good country trained runners. When you were thinking Group 1 contenders coming out of it, and I'm not saying they aren't, I'm just saying the jury's out on most of those horses. Conqueror and Gracie Styler probably at the moment.
Yes. Okay. Let's move on to the 1300 metre 78. They absolutely walked here, John.
What about this race?
Very, very slow tempo. Plenty to talk about. So we're talking about the Grace and Harmony race. You know, it's come back well, I think, and in for a good preparation for sure. And horses like Darrellina Bell and Niffler, total forgive runs for them. They just couldn't do any better than they did really from those positions, given that slow tempo. And
very, very good horse, Grace and Harmony.
Nice run.
Look at it here, like it's the one. It's copping backwash and like not over racing. She just can't go any slower. She's actually racing quite tractably considering the tempo. Ends up in a nice enough spot, but Jesus, she rips home.
No, yeah, hard to miss that. But you know, as I said, those other two, Darrellina Bell and Niffler, just forget they went round.
I think race-wise, we just treat it as a barrier trial, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think so.
And most of those horses that will continue racing on are basically at that stage. So Darrellina Bell and Pizarro are up and running, but probably the main horses, Niffler and those sort of things, it pretty much was a barrier trial.
Anything else to say about it?
No, not really. The winner went okay, but he's not suited by the slow tempo either, I think. Like, he was obviously in the right spot to take advantage of it, but I think he's not a sit sprinter either. So he did a good enough job. I don't want to be too negative towards Yukon, just because that he's, you know, even though he was handed the race, he's not suited by a sit sprint.
Okay, let's move on to the 1000 metre 78. Average tempo early, below average, slowed down a little bit by the time they got to the 600. Mao Tai got the job done for Connections, of course, being gelded too, so it was good to see it come back and win. I thought Quick Tempo's run was pretty good. It had no luck, decent run it.
Mr. Kick got dropped out as well.
Yeah. Super, who actually very well exposed horse, also ran as very well, I thought, in the race.
Going okay, that trainer. He's sneaky going okay, that month.
Yeah, he is indeed. What else do we want to say, John?
No, I was scared of Mao Tai because of the earmuffs in gate 1, and the horse is a bit of a lunatic and has to stay in the gates for a long time. Obviously, wondering whether gelding had offset that, but no one knew what was going to happen until the gates opened. Manova coming out was a big positive for Mao Tai as well, and Bowman's just a freak, isn't he? Like, he just didn't breathe on the horse out the gates. Just raced beautifully the whole way. He never even like he's kitted to it all the way. Sort of got it as far off the fence as he probably could have, and you know, he's just too good. But yeah, I agree that Quick Tempo was a little bit stiff. I think if it had sort of jumped and got to the right part, it would have given Mao Tai a run for its money, but it didn't, and it's going very well. Don't think that run will hurt it, and I think they're the only two horses out of the race that are sprint competitive. And Super was a sneaky run from back in the pack that I don't know too many people would have picked up as clearly as the first and the third horse.
Yes. Okay, well, we can move on to the 1800 metre race average tempo here for the open horses, and Lord Ardmore got the job done for us. Francesco Guardi went back to the inside, which didn't think it was the right decision, but may or may not have cost it. Who knows? But the winner's done a good job. I think they were the two that we highlighted out of the last race that they ran.
Out of the same, yeah. Yep.
Yee went well.
Rocket,
you know, it went like an absolute rocket, and wasn't suited. Alcyone was a bit disappointing, I thought. And,
too close, I think. Just rode it too close. Second up, maybe a bit of a gut buster. You can see how keen it is there, and it's sort of the one here in the one out, one back position. Just never settled the whole race. I'd be inclined to be forgiving of it. Just thought, you know, last start out the back, hot tempo, given one run this time, tried to jam it up on speed, and everything went pear-shaped. But it was very well backed. I thought, all things considered, I was a bit surprised how short it was, but
And Grove Ferry, I thought, did a good job.
went like a rocket too. I think the first 3 across the line and Yee all went like rockets. I think this is very good form.
Yes, I'd say you're right for sure.
It's funny, isn't it? I don't know whether this is the key to it because they rode it a bit colder. Has been closer to the speed, but it's and it probably did peak late, so maybe a softer draw or something. You can set a little bit closer, but different horse to its first couple of runs back. This prep, like did it run? I haven't.
That was its second run.
This is the second run back. So and it ran ridiculous sections in. I did look, but didn't write them down.
Yeah, ran the best 8, 6, and 4 sectional rating on the day, and second best last 200 sectional rating on the day.
Cool.
Okay, race 8, the Missile Stakes feature races today, and look, they went average tempo here, but there wasn't much talk of that in the stewards report, with a lot of the jockeys saying that it was a decent tempo up front, but not.
It wasn't horrific, was it? But it wasn't like a normal missile.
No, it was an average tempo. Average tempo. And we've got a question about this later on as to how we explain the result.
We may as well cover it now, like you said, as in, can you explain the result?
We may as well. Look, the way I figure is, look, Hard Empire, I certainly didn't have it marked short enough to back it. But it did run the best last 200, or third best last 400 and best last 200 sectional rating there at Grafton, when it was totally unsuited from that gate and had to go back. Was that good enough here? You would think probably not. A lot of these, or the main chances, were first up in the market, and there were a number of failures in the race too. So I thought Nimmerly was disappointing, and Bellucci Babe, who I didn't like, was also disappointing. The SP. Other than that, I backed Gem Song. I thought it was in the race and ran a nice race, I suppose, outperformed. How else do you explain the result? I mean, it's a game of randomness, and 100 to 1 chances win.
Well, it's weird too because it sort of half misses the kick, and if you watch closely here, it actually cops quite a lot of interference in the run. Hard Empire, and gets on heels and carries on a bit. So and it's the strongest late. Does get to the right part of the track. If you kind of go through the race, I agree with you. I didn't think Bellucci Babe was going to be a factor first up 1200. It's probably still been disappointing. Embracer was obviously disappointing. I'd say there's an issue there. It's had every possible. It's traced the leader. Prime Candidate's probably Cactus. It's probably had enough this prep and close to found its mark. You would have to say that Forbidden Love was disappointing considering its prep, but it was coming off, a lot of wet track runs, a long prep city, and its trial wasn't, dynamic. So you can kind of say that she's only just fair anyway. And these other horses, Wonder Bar, Gem Song, there's not much between them. I don't know. And even you've got Halal sort of rushing home after getting checked out early, but then off the bit a long way out. It's just a weird race where the kind of moons have aligned a bit for Hard Empire, but.
Well, it's interesting, when we talk about the failures in the race. I mean, the top 6 in the market all failed to run top 4.
Yes. Which is without significant issue, like, you know what I mean? Like not a weirdly run race, really. And not like, I don't think many of them have pulled up sore or anything like that, notably in the stewards report anyway. So it's...
No, it's Forbidden Love, I mean, I suppose it was the class runner of the race, but all that wet track form that it had last prep, the trial wasn't that flash.
No.
Would you have expected it to go as bad as it did? Probably not.
Well, I thought it might get a tougher run and run like it did. I was very surprised it was week late giving the ride that Bowman gave it. I agree with. I think that's probably.
So interesting to see what happens with it going forward. But certainly, I wouldn't be sacking it totally. I mean, it has got previous form on firmer ground as well. But certainly a bit disappointing, I suppose, on face value. And Bellucci Babe first up here at 1200 on a rain
I think it's a
rain
1,000
affected
metre.
track, dead track. Yeah, exactly. It was always one that we wanted to be against. Count the Rupees run wasn't too bad either.
But it was just, like what do you do when it was on the back of Hard Empire? You know what I mean? Like it's one probably you've got to be harsh on. Whereas say Nimmerley was tied to the fence the whole way. It's probably one you can be more forgiving of than say a counter. I don't know. It's just such a weird race that I'd be really concerned about the horses that had every chance, like Forbidden Love, and I'd be wary of the form overall. But yeah, very wary of horses that had their chance in the race and didn't perform at all.
Yeah,
it's a yuck race, isn't it? Really,
it is a bit. It is a bit. Okay, let's move.
You can kind of explain it after the event, but still not really.
Well, top 6, not one of them running top 4 is
not good.
Is indicative. Doesn't mean the race is shit. It just simply means that
be wary.
Be wary. And yeah, when horses are resuming, there's always going to be those question marks. Okay, let's move on to race 9, which is the 78 over a mile, average to below average tempo by the time they got to the 600 here. Casino Kid got the job done. Bold Mac.
Your man Clipper.
Yeah, Bold Mac was very disappointing, I thought. I'd back bid. Maybe a drop back in distance now for it.
A bit keen and a bit of a second up hangover as well. We can see it there. He's trying to restrain it, and it's very keen behind the leader. I actually thought it would win this race too, which obviously we didn't talk about it, but I thought it would be very hard to beat, and it was the one that was a bit plain second up off a good first up win that you thought he might go forward off.
Yeah. So I don't know what else there is to say about the race, John.
Well, there's some decent. I thought, like, contributing factor, not many horses come out of midways and sort of go on with it. I thought his effort was very good. A perfect ride. I never, in my wildest dreams, thought he'd be one out, one back. It was a really good ride from Dylan Givens, but she's found the key to this horse. I don't know what the heck has changed in Casino Kid, but it's like he's dragged it back probably 5 lengths further than he had to here, just from the gate. As I said, the tempo was not anything to write home about, so it hasn't had pace assistance. And then it's ripped home with no excuses for anything else behind. So absolutely flying Casino Kid, and one horse that certainly you wouldn't think this would be its peak run. That
1100 to 1600 second up.
Yeah.
Obviously the 1100 wasn't a distance in which it was ever going to be competitive. And the 1600 and a massive, on my figures, about a 13-pound turnaround in jockey between Ashley Morgan and Sam Clipperton.
Jeepers.
So that sort of brings it into calculation a little bit too, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. And obviously the pattern was not hurting it coming down that section and found the right part, but no other assistance like pace or anything. Every other horse around it kind of had their chance. Safika went okay. Ilafari and First Light, very similar horses, looked pretty one-pace types from that Waller camp. I would be forgiving of Bold Mac just in that wrong part and a bit keen. I think it can certainly outperform First Light and Ilafari wherever they go, and probably Safika.
I'm just thinking it might need to drop back in distance. That's the only thing with Bold Mac. That's
because he was keen. I agree with that, but he was 14 first up, wasn't he?
Yeah, but his prior form was pretty much all over, 1,200 metres, 1,400 metres as well, I suppose, but 12 to 14. And it had that failure. Look, admittedly, the track was not as soft as it was at Rose Hill that day, and it was fresh, and might have been just a second up issue, but I think I'd still prefer.
You spot like it makes sense that a horse 1,400, maybe a bit flat off that run, up in distance on a really slowly run race is going to do what it did. So you might be right. Like the old Waller 31 to 45 days back to 12 to 1,400 could be the good recipe.
And second up Waller.
Not as good.
Off a first up win is not as good, in terms of betting returns. Okay, so let's move on to the last. Here we saw Glittery not get the job done. What do we say about it, John? It's average tempo here. Did the horse just...
It's won 2 races, and both times it's just sat off them cold tempos and sort of let go. And it, trying to ride it a bit closer again, I think was not the secret to this horse. Maybe just trying to ride it to the anticipated speed and pattern, and you can see even now he's trying to sort of slot back as far as he can. I don't know. To me, the horse is a bit of a... When it gets the right run, it's dynamic, but when it doesn't, it's pretty plain.
All 4 wins are 1,100 metres, and what else have we got? And 3 of them were on, slow to heavy tracks.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something there. I still thought it was a bit disappointing.
Agree. Yeah, like he's definitely got enough chance here. Like it's got the back of the winner. It didn't do anything too crazy in the run, and got the back of the winner, and the winner's run away from it first up. So very hard to make too many excuses for it. And
the winner has gone pretty much as good as it can go too. So,
if he can get one ready first up, Matthew Dale, he's landed. I'm not saying that was a plunge, but it's a pretty decent win first up. I know. Look at the charge of the Light Brigade. It's a pretty ugly race, but it's done all the work in theory. Even though it may be okay to sit out there and got away from him, and they've only closed late, which has sort of hidden a bit of its merit. He's a very good trainer.
Yeah, look, I think the race is only just average. Seven runners covering 2 lengths.
Box is what you're really thinking, but you won't say it.
I don't particularly like it, no.
Thought Marchionis is probably the only horse that was maybe a little bit stiff back towards the inside, got going again late, just needs a rider change.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about horses to follow, John. I don't normally have many, but I've got a few here.
You've got a few. You go first then, so I can go back through. I just never, ever do this. I'm hopeless.
Race 5, Grace and Harmony. I think it's come back very well and is in for a good preparation. Then we move on to the Premier's Cup, and I've got 3 runners, Lord Ardmore, Grove, Ferry and Yee. I think that race is going to be a good form race. And even Francesco Guardi, who's just went back to the inside, that was a decent enough run. And that's about it. So 4 in total, 3 out of the 1 race.
Yeah, I think you found like the 2 strong, well, the one really strong race, Grace and Harmony, I agree, is probably, don't know where she's going to get to, which is one of these, got a question later about what races they're going to aim up for. I guess you just don't matter. It doesn't matter. You just wait for it to get into a race that looks suitable. But again, like you'd expect Tyler Schiller to come off Grace and Harmony wherever it goes to, which is going to be a big positive for that horse too. I thought Quick Tempo's ready to win a race away from the ones you said, but I agree that Cup Prelude Strange 1,800 metre race has to be one of the better feeder races for a while.
There was one horse we didn't mention that I was going to mention. Where's my notes? Out of the Missile, Special Reward. I think its run was decent first up.
Was it the one coming with Halal? They were sort of both laying on top of each other back in the field.
You can bring the race up.
Yeah, they were. It was the ones. They were the ones coming together. Hang on, I'll bring it up. Both of their runs were a bit weird. It was like they hindered each other back in the pack and sort of had a race between themselves. 15. It was like the old. So it's the last 2 here. Special Reward to the inside. Wrong part. Halal sort of starts laying in on top of it, and they sort of don't get going till the race is over.
Just thought it was very strong through the line and past the post, and in a race where it wasn't really suited. And
you can see he's more worried about trying to get off the heels of those stopping runners than he is about trying to sort of advance himself, isn't he? Like you can see that there's a traffic jam coming, and he's trying to get around them rather than get to work on the horse. So
and just watch it through the line past the post.
Geez, Forbidden Love was completely cast late, wasn't it? Yeah, it's in front now.
So I'll throw it in the horses to follow as well.
Yeah, I think there's a heap of forgives, but as far as horses to follow, I think you've pretty much nailed it.
Okay, let's move on to questions, and of course, this whole show is brought to you by Topsport. And if you don't have an account, punters, certainly get that one sorted. Get in contact with Tristan, and he'll look after you, or you're one of the team. And of course, now that we're getting back into better racing, the limits will be obviously higher, and they always give you a fair bet. And of course, those limits apply from the moment they go up with their markets. Okay, so first question was actually the one that we answered for Danny Jackson, which was the missile result. Well, I hope we answered it. Next, we have one here from Matt, and he wants to know how we dealt with the Conscript race back on Randwick 9th of July. It looks such a non-event, but now second, third and fourth have all won races from it. My own thinking moving forward is I should have viewed it as the equivalent of a positive trial. Is this reasonable? Look, the racing question and the horses, John, what have we got? Easy single.
If that was a trial, it was a very, very, very positive trial. They would have gone about 30 above in a trial. But yeah, go on.
Well, I've actually got Easy Singles run in that race on the 9th of July, better than its win on the 30th of July. Snow Zone got up the fence Saturday and won, and was probably lucky that who rode Cherrabordi, is it Angela Jones?
Oh God, I don't think she saw it. I don't think she saw the horse on the inside, to be honest, but still.
Maybe not. And of course, Casino Kid got the job done Saturday. In terms of that race, though, on the day and how I marked it post-race, I marked it about 0.4 of a length better than your standard or expected. So for me, there was nothing really wrong with the race. And that day there was 3 1100 metre heats, and it ran, well, the races, that race 6 it was, and race 9, Lady Brook won race 9. Excuse me, they ran the same time, but the sectionals were a lot better in Conscript's race. They went out about 4.6 lengths slower and came home 4.3 lengths faster to run the same time, adjusted. And the 2-year-old race, which was race 1, had first use of the track and ran slightly better, but it ran 9.7 lengths faster to the 600 than the Conscript race. So I think overall,
that it looked like a bit of a nothing race, didn't it? Like your leader goes to the front, chase, nothing really happened. Say they went out, say like 10 below and come home 3 above, there was no real merit anywhere in the race. Sections of the day were only fair. Then you could probably make the argument that it was a nothing race. But what we're kind of saying is they've gone out at a controlled speed. They've definitely accelerated off that, but they've all done something. They've run the top 6 fastest last 200 of the day, which you kind of expect off a softish tempo, but they've still done it. There's still good merit in the time. There's still good merit in the last sections. So it's not really a race that you would just treat as a barrier trial. It's one of these races that can be easily overlooked, like a slow run race with good merit late can can't even speak, often be overlooked. So
well, particularly the last 400 and 200 in that race were excellent. So as I said, I've got the race rating a bit stronger than expected. So I can't pot it.
No, and that's exactly not potting the race, and it's actually a really good feeder rate. In hindsight, Casino Kid was probably the best run of the race, and it's the one that's come out and been most dominant. The other two have been a little bit lucky, but certainly couldn't have knocked their runs in that race. And the winners, hasn't been seen since. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the betting on it.
Indeed. Okay, Andrew wants to know, how do we look at laying a prospect, or how do we look at laying a prospect opposed to a horse that we just want to risk at the price, or is it based on your price entirely? I.e., if you mark it at 6-4 and it's 10-9 on, is it an auto lay? Look, my lay model works on the basis of price only, so it is a differential. You've got to sort of come up with your own measure on that. You could refine it if you're not doing it automatically to exclude certain types of horses. So if you're going to do that, I'd probably look to exclude horses that you think will race up on the lead because they're obviously riskier lay propositions. regardless of price. So that would be the way I would probably look at it. But to answer your question, Andrew, it is for me purely about price differential in terms of real percentage.
Yeah, and he's only asked you, but I'm a little bit different because I do different things in life, including everything: sleeping, talking, eating. I'm just strange, but I agree with you. Like anything with a query in it, any sort of like significant rider change, distance, anything that you're not sure about, stay away from those horses. Anything that can improve significantly, lightly raced horses that have had queries against, be very careful. Jockey upgrades, I think, are very careful, like you say, like that Ashley Morgan to Clipperton. That's a huge change, and a lot of people underestimate that. So those sorts of things are really easy mistakes to make, and a horse can really, bounce off an on paper poor performance to really hurt you. So yeah, like you say, bad map, bad jockey, bad trainer, strike rate, those sorts of things. As many of those you can roll into something. Bad race shape, and anything you can get against. So I like to have as much against a horse as possible if I'm going to lay it.
I mean, map, if you're doing it, yeah, you're choosing individual targets, right? So
correct.
I'm speaking from, I'm betting on 950 races or more
That's
a month,
right.
And
yep.
I can't be doing that. So
that's
for the person who is doing that, absolutely, all those points that you raised are excellent ones, and I would have to probably say that of all of those, map and jockey are probably two key indicators to include.
Because a good jockey can overcome a bad map. They can anticipate it and pull your pants down, say like James McDonald or someone like that, and that's why you pay a premium, isn't it, for them a lot of the time?
That's right, indeed. Okay, let's move on. One here from Stephen. The weight relief for apprentices always seems tempting, but you have to be ready to take some slaughters on the chin. Do you guys have any preferences about when and where you'll back them, i.e. on leaders or back markers, older versus younger horses, sprint versus staying, country versus metro, etc.? Look, for me, the claim, which is essentially a compensation for perceived lack of ability, that's all factored automatically, so I don't think about it. But yes, it is taken into account. Country versus metro, all those things that you've mentioned, pretty much factored, even down to the sprint and staying races. But it's done automatically, so I don't have to think about it. And it's just purely an adjustment or a weighted measure adjustment on the overall figure for a jockey or a trainer. I'm not saying that, for instance, Ashley Morgan's a bad jockey when I talk about that big turnaround to Sam Clipperton. What I'm saying is that relatively, they're just poles apart. And for me, that makes a big difference. And obviously, when there's an apprentice involved, that's going to hurt them more, and it's going to make that difference look bigger. I don't adopt the same claims that they use officially in my ratings and how I adjust for it. So, I've got some senior jockeys who have well and truly been out of their, indentures for quite a while. I still sort of grade them. No, I don't claim 10, but I still have them as,
they should be.
Some of those as claiming jockeys, and I think that's the right thing to do, because they don't just improve overnight 3 kilos. If they're a 3 kilo apprentice and tomorrow they're a senior jockey, they haven't just improved. So I think all that needs to be factored. But it's even good jockeys are going to ride some horrors sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. You pretty much covered most things. I just think any sort of a horse that's very green or showing a lack of experience, plus an apprentice, danger. Backmarker and apprentice, danger. And this is obviously sometimes an apprentice, like a good apprentice, say a Bailey Wheeler heading to the country, can actually be an upgrade from a senior jockey, which you touched upon as well. But so just in general, lightly raced horses that look like they're struggling for experience, plus an apprentice is it danger, backmarker danger, go forward to a certain degree, less danger, but sort of each case is different, isn't it? And I think apprentices in the country, there's a much bigger difference, less difference, than just in isolation. Obviously, each different, as we're talking about. But in the city, you want to demand more from an apprentice than you do in the country for mine.
And field size.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
more danger. Does that make sense? More decisions for the jockey to make equals more danger.
Yep. Next one's from someone who's written anonymously and would like to stay that way. But the discussion point really is, as to this time of the season, trainers are often encouraged to declare future race targets in terms of a horse's program. And what we're really trying to ascertain is whether or not that information is helpful or harmful. I suppose this comes back into a whole range of factors like pre-post betting, first of all. You know, why do we want to know this information? Well, presumably we want to know because we're looking to target certain horses, you know, in betting strategies in terms of pre-post betting, you know, backing this horse early because we know that that's the race it's going to. But the problem is that for whatever reason, and it's obviously different for different types of horses, but like say weight for age horses, for instance, the options can be very different and they can change because, you know, horses aren't machines. They, you know, they have setbacks, preparation changes. We've had lots of rain this year, you know, excessive amounts of rain, which have meant a lot of meetings have been cancelled and, you know, programs have had to be altered. You know, there's so many things on the table that can change a trainer's view from, you know, maybe 1 week to, you know, a week or two or even a month later, that they might say that this horse is going to this race, but then when they change their mind, what happens? You know, you're an all-in punter, you might have backed that horse because of that guidance. And of course, you've done your dough if it changes. So, you know, is it helpful? Is it harmful? What are your thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it? And there's, for me, who's someone who loved, like, and lived in this space, this is my thing. You know, one of the big targets for me each sort of autumn and spring carnival was trying to identify these horses, and you would pretty much know, you know, which way most horses would go, which 3-year-old path horses would take to the Derby, which 3-year-old path horses would take to the Caulfield Guineas, which, you know, Caulfield Cup path horses would take. And now that there's just so many different options and these pop-up races and madness, like, and, you know, not too many people are probably across racing much more than people like us. And there's races I've never heard of, you know, that now exist, and I still have never heard of them. And they're all jumping in there. And then you've got the added, you know, the market percentages are higher on these races, and you want a huge premium to sort of play in them. So to me, it's nearly a thing of the past. Sounds terrible. And I kind of more care about what stage their preparation is. So say a horse like Conqueror on Saturday, I want to look at it on Saturday and go, okay, well, you're resuming over 1400. Where are you going? And that's a bit of a funny example because it's a weird horse. But, you know, you kind of look at Chris Waller in the past. Dominic Byrne came on Twitter when I sort of asked the question and said, well, why don't you look at a horse like Autumn Sun? And I couldn't really compare those two horses because of their experience levels. But that was kind of where your mind went, wasn't it? Because Waller resumed him over 1500. He went on to Spring Champion and those sorts of races. I think for me, betting in these pre-post betting races is nearly impossible. And unless it's a trainer that's come out with, you know, supreme confidence, this is where the horse is heading, and you believe you're getting a big premium, it's very hard to play in the races at all. I don't think it's worth the financially or mentally to sort of be worried about it. There's just too many options, isn't there? Like, and who knows? They might throw an extra $1 million at a race between now and then all of a sudden it changes again.
Look, for me, I'm not a pre-post punter, and I got cured of that. And Maldivian got beaten in the Caulfield Cup. I think I want to mention that.
Why bring that up?
When you're betting on the Tuesday, and that happens on the Saturday, it's not good. Anyway, and of course,
camera box in the store. Who put the camera box in the store? Did they ever arrest him?
And incentivised to double it. And very elegant. Did something that she's never done before and will never do since. But anyway, but yeah, and they're the reasons I'm not, because I mean it's just so hard to do. And look, there might be some people that have had a bit of luck with it, and sure, good luck to you. But there's enough to do and there's enough work on to not worry about it.
say there's a 2-year-old you thought might progress to being a 3-year-old, and then you catch a couple of glints of it trialling really nicely, and you think, well, hang on, this horse might be going to the Caulfield Guineas. It's not insane to look up the Caulfield Guineas betting, and if it's 100 to 1, whatever, you know what I mean? But it's just something you wouldn't be putting your last on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can understand taking big prices, horses, especially if you have an interest in it, or your mate has an interest in the horse or something like that. You might have a small bet if you think that it might measure up. But generally speaking, it's a very problematical.
It's a minefield.
It's a minefield. So,
and then the horse has got to win.
So do we agree that, I suppose, on balance, that the information is not helpful? It's not necessarily harmful, but it's not helpful. It's
very difficult. All you can do is kind of, the social media and stuff does give you better access to most of these trainers and things, but they don't care about pre-post punters or where they're going, and neither should they. You know what I mean? Like, to a certain degree, they've got to worry about their owners and training the horse. So
they've got to worry, and that's another aspect, isn't it? Like the owner. So the owner may not be happy about the trainer, targeting the race and making it obvious to everyone else as to what their intentions might be. And does the trainer actually want to educate the other trainers on
to
what
where he's going?
Yeah. So
or where his horse is in its preparation.
I can see lots of reasons for the trainer not wanting to divulge the information. And I can see lots of instances where they do divulge the information and without intent make changes to those plans. Without prior intent, make changes.
Completely innocently.
Exactly. Okay. The Topsport question of the week comes from Mitchell, who has said that with bookmakers now required to send monthly profit and loss statements to customers, what impact do you think this will have on the turnover in the industry? Will this change fly in the face of people like Volandis who believe that casual punters don't care about market percentages? When they will now be able to see their losses increasing on their monthly statements. Look, we've spoken about it off air, John. We both think that this is going to impact turnover negatively. It may bring more pressure onto some of those more valuable clients, or the VIPs as the corporates refer to them, so that, perhaps they'll be more accountable for their losses. Maybe they'll have more issues to deal with in their personal life, self-excluding, all that sort of stuff. I can't see it. I see it as not a bad thing to do, but and I think that anything that helps the problem gambler stop gambling or reduce their gambling, I think anything that does that is actually a good thing. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's going to be a good thing for the corporate in terms of their margins or their bottom lines. It's going to have some impact, and surely, it's going to make it harder to find new mugs, as it were, who are going to lose at the adequate rate to make that whole model worthwhile.
Yeah, I think the problem is that the whole, maybe inadvertently, I don't know, the huge changes over, say, the last, we'll say 10 years for argument's sake, have brought about the average recreational punter losing from somewhere between 8 and 10% on turnover to between 15 and 20% on turnover now. And that's just the environment change. So that's with free bets and everything included. They're losing their money twice as fast as they were 10 years ago. And that's basically what they have to lose, the rate they have to lose at for a corporate to be sustainable. So how can that be a good thing, number one? Number two, if they're not aware of it, the monthly statements combined with this new compulsory deposit limit, because if you're just a run-of-the-mill punter and you think mentally you lose $100 a week, you're going to go, okay, well, I'll make my deposit limit 100 or 200. And then when you've knocked that off quickly, you start to sort of jerry that maybe you're losing a little bit more money. So the combination of the two things is definitely a huge positive for problem gambling. My issue is that the whole industry, is conditioning everyone to lose quickly. And
it's poker machine. It's the poker machines. The problem gambling, with clubs and poker machines and pubs that have these licenses. I mean, I understand they're running a business and they welcome the profits that they make, and a lot of these pubs probably wouldn't be financially viable without them, which is a worry in itself. But the POC tax and all, when New South Wales goes, oh, we're going to increase, or Queensland goes, we're going to increase, or Canberra, I mean, those hundreds of millions of dollars extra in tax payable and revenues come from the punter. So that means that they're saying that we expect you to lose more next year. We expect you to lose. Yeah, you're going to lose 300 or 400 million more, or whatever the figure is. And we're going to take it from you, and we're going to reduce the turnover effectively at the same time. So all of these things are just building up and continue to put pressure on the whole ecosystem, which is already, there's a delicate balance there that's, I think,
it's not out of balance. It's bloody barrier reef levels out of balance.
It's got to tip at some stage completely. And so, the windfalls that are gained are very short term.
And if someone made the simple argument, it's, again, I don't have the statistics, but it's got to be very near now. So if a corporate has to win at 15% on turnover to win, very scary. But if you had the ability to compare that to the average takeout of a poker machine, for argument's sake, which has got to be very similar. I think they're set at about 85 or something like that. And you had the ability to compare turnover figures to rate of return of a recreational gambler compared to the turnover and rate of return of a poker machine, and you put them next to each other and you let that information out, if they were very similar, that would be very scary to the industry. And I don't think it's far apart. Like, as I said, I'm speculative. I don't want to be held accountable, but I think it's getting into those sorts of areas. If you're losing at 20% on turnover, you're nearly better off playing a poker machine. That's pretty scary.
We'll put it this way. That then begs the question, why is it when you go and play a poker machine, are you not required to furnish your details? And why aren't they receiving statements monthly?
Exactly.
Shouldn't that be
because
next?
Everyone, and that's the scary part. But I do think that, whatever you want to call it, responsible gambling, responsible as RSA at the clubs, isn't it? With drinking, with gambling, I don't know what it's called, but those are the areas that need to be tightened up heavily. And once they are tightened up heavily to where they should be, which will create further turnover cuts, the people that are, between winning and losing 5% on turnover, that are currently being strangled out of the industry, they're going to be looking for those people to sort of return pretty quickly, you would hope.
Well, I mean, if they reduce the taxes or abolish them, turnover would go up significantly. If they reduced the takeout for the tote and encourage people to bet on the totes, then that would also, and made those rebates available to...
And tried to maybe return some of the money from the corporates to the totes as well. Yeah.
Less focus on prize money, more money back into building the pools, building the actual wagering model and the revenues that come from it, then the losses incurred by these, some of these punters would be obviously significantly less, right? Because
would slow down.
So they're going to lose their money at a slower rate. And get more entertainment. And if it is all about entertainment, and I'm addressing that now to the PRAs that think that punters don't care about what price they take. If it is about entertainment, well, you want them to lose at a lower rate, right? And make it more sustainable for everyone. I just think they've got it. The equation's imbalanced and doesn't make sense to me.
Well, if you're calling it entertainment and you go to see Green Day and it's $100 and you're getting charged $200, like that's what you say. That's exactly what it's going to be. It's so simple. You can make so many different. You get half the crowd. If you're charging 200 instead of 100, you're going to get half the crowd, and that's what it's going to be. Because once people work out what they're getting charged at the moment, they probably aren't aware of it, and preying upon that's pretty scary and dangerous. And you wouldn't think it's a great business model to prey upon people who are not aware. And happy to sort of take more and more from them until they finally work it out, or it's not a great model for me. When you're not sustainable, when you like you say, if it's entertainment especially, and you can drive more turnover, educate punters better, tell them that they're the difference between the prices, and understand why that those prices are different, and why you need to seek better prices to have better longevity. If they don't want to listen, fine, that happens in my. But educating and making it more sustainable should be their goal, not stripping as much as you can. And anyway,
Indeed. Okay, punters, that's it for this week. I'm going to be away for the next 2 weeks on overseas. John and Jason, we're going to try and get them to step in and do a couple of rapid fire shows on the Thursday. I think we've got the PB Lawrence Group 2 this weekend in Melbourne, so that'll be
Jason will be up and about.
A timely return, so they'll be doing that, and that information will obviously flow through as it does normally. So you'll be able to do that. Well, we will miss next Monday's review, but we'll be there for the week after. So it's only the one review show we're missing out on, and we'll see you then, I suppose. John.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good trip.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, mate.